how's it going? Welcome back to another edition of TNA Impact Wrestling Review for May 22nd, 2014. I am, of course, your host, The Wizard 411, and I pretty much just, wanted to get into the show real quick and talk about the events that transpired tonight. Now, this show, I'm probably gonna give it a thumbs down. I wanted to give it more thumbs somewhere in like the middle, maybe, not completely up, but it's gonna be down. And the reason I'm going to say that is because of the way the show was set up. It started out really strong, and I thought that, okay, you know what? Maybe this is going to be promising. We're going to get a really good show. But it ended up not being that way at all. Anyway, enough of my bickering. Let me get straight to the review because during my review, you will hear some more bickering. So, we start off the show with MVP, Bobby Lashley, and Kenny King coming out, pretty much cutting a promo stating how this was all a setup all along. MVP wanted to gain control of the company so that they can begin, doing what they always do and be heels because that's the nature of the business. This doesn't sound familiar at all. I mean, no other wrestling company is currently doing a similar storyline where the guy that's in charge suddenly goes mad with power and brings two other people along to try to run roughshod around the whole company. But anyway, um, during the promo, we get a segment where the Wolves come out, which were actually the guys that MVP first signed into TNA when he came in. And they're the tag team champions right now. They, of course, weren't really down with what was going on, because they're still baby faces and whatnot. And the audience, the crowd really digs them, so I don't really think they're going to pull the trigger on them and turn them bad. Anyway, the first opening segment was pretty impressive because you pretty much had the new heel faction destroy the Wolves. Bobby Lashley spears Eddie Edwards in the ring. Really powerful spear, too. They really sold that spear. And Davey Richards, they threw him outside of the ring, and it followed by Bobby Lashley spearing him onto a table, which was a pretty good high spot. Like I said, the show actually started off pretty strong, but after that, it kind of started dwindling. And the reason I'm going to say that is because MVP was literally on the show, like the entire show. First match didn't even start until 9:30, I believe, somewhere around 9:30. So about a half an hour of nonsense. Anyway, after that first segment happens, they pretty much take Damien Richards away in an ambulance. He's gone for the rest of the night. Our second segment features Eric Young and Austin Aries, you guessed it, fending off Bobby Lashley, MVP, and Kenny King. So we literally just had a similar segment, but except now we have two guys that are more top tier in the ring. Same result. They still got their butts handed to them by this new heel faction, and they pretty much repeated the exact same section all over again, which I wasn't really too high on. Anyway, going back, we had a backstage segment with Bram and Magnus. Bram was pretty much telling Magnus that he was speaking to MVP throughout the night, and that he got another match with him for him against Willow the Wisp. And Magnus was like, "Hey, you know what? I'm really getting tired of you." And bam, he just like hits him. Bram hits the floor, smiles, gets back up with like a bloody mouth, and he goes, "That's the kind of Magnus I want to see." So, he's pretty much trying to bring out like the mean streak in Magnus, I guess. I guess that'll erase, Magnus being a paper champion this whole time. But Magnus seems kind of conflicted. Like it looks like they're gonna turn him into a babyface based on what they're doing with him so far. It's just only a matter of time. So after that, we had another backstage segment where Angelina Love pretty much gave an open challenge for her TNA Women's Knockout title. Gail Kim came out to respond. Gail Kim beats her up backstage. That was kind of a throwaway segment because it kind of led up to the first match of the night, which was actually Angelina Love versus Brittany of all people, because Angelina told Gail that anyone that was already a former Knockouts champion couldn't compete. And she wanted some fresh blood in there. Basically, she wanted an easy win. So her and Brittany get into it. It was an okay match. First match of the night, maybe about 5 minutes or so, give or take. Angelina Love ends up taking this match via interference from Velvet Sky. She bends over in front of referee Stifler. Stifler gets distracted, allowing Angelina to get the Botox shot, I believe they called it, which is pretty much like Sheamus's Broad Kick. But in all fairness, I'm pretty sure I saw her do that before Sheamus did it, so that's her move. Um, After that, that match finished as we knew it would, interference. Moving on, our second match, which actually started a little while after that, which I was surprised. I thought they were going to do like another half-hour segment before they got into it. Second match was Austin Aries versus MVP. This match was made earlier during their confrontation when Austin Aries came out to help Eric Young. The match started off pretty good. It was a decent match. However, there was interference because Bobby Lashley and Kenny King came out to interfere, of course, giving Aries the win via disqualification. During that segment, Dixie Carter actually comes out with EC3 to confront MVP. And at first, I'm thinking, okay, maybe they're trying to swerve things, and now they're trying to make Dixie a good guy and whatnot. Bully Ray comes in, interferes. He comes in with like some big lead pipe, threatening Dixie. After Dixie runs out of the ring with EC3, MVP's goons end up jumping Bully Ray, allowing EC3 to come in and put him through a table. So that segment ends there. Cut to a commercial break. When we come back, EC3 and Dixie Carter are actually walking towards the limo, and Bully Ray is walking behind them, holding his side because he was wounded from the table. But to no avail because they end up escaping in their limousine, and that's the end of that segment. Um, the third match of the night is Willow versus Magnus. Now, this was actually a pretty good match. I have to give them credit. Magnus and Willow always pull out good matches. They're never really bad. It was a false count anywhere match. Bram was accompanying Magnus during this match, and he kept trying to give him that foreign object that he used the week before so that he could use it against Willow. Magnus actually ends up using it, but to no avail because Willow still ends up getting the win via twist of fate. Bram looks at Magnus with disapproval, and we cut to a segment afterwards where Gunner is in the insane asylum with Samuel Shaw. This I kind of thought was a throwaway segment, but then they ended up coming back to it later on. I'll just get that out of the way now. Pretty much, Gunner ends up giving him a pep talk about how he knows what he's been through because he had to commit one of his friends during the war and whatnot, and that he wants to help him. So I guess they're gonna make them a tag team or something. I'm not really sure. I still kind of felt that this was throwaway. After that, we had a segment where Eddie Edwards came out and he challenged any of the three goons that jumped him earlier. Kenny King ended up responding, I guess, because he's the only one that didn't have a match yet. They didn't really have a match. They kind of just brawled for a little while. It was some good back and forth brawling. There was not really any real high spots because it wasn't actually a wrestling match. However, Kenny King did gain the upper hand, and he won this brawl via T-bone suplex in the outside ramp, which looked like it hurt pretty badly. So this whole show so far is going towards the heels. They're not really showing any love to the baby faces in this entire show, except for Willow, because Jeff Hardy, no matter what, he always gets the love. Um, After that, we had a backstage segment with James Storm and Ken Anderson. They were actually having a drinking contest. However, Ken Anderson was setting this up to get James Storm drunk enough to the point where he can just beat him up, which ends up happening. He beats up James Storm while he's drunk. Then he stuffs a $100 bill in his mouth, telling him that he's earned it and that might help him with his hangover. That was planned out throughout the course of the night. I know I didn't mention it earlier, but I didn't feel necessary until right now when it actually came to fruition. Um, anyway, after that, we had our main event, which was Bobby Lashley versus Eric Young. Now, first and foremost, I want to say this was actually a pretty good match. The main events in TNA usually are good. They don't really have a habit of making them bad matches. However, I didn't like the fact that the match ended up with, more interference because this whole Impact was interference ridden. It's bad enough that they only had 4 matches, or rather 3.5 matches, because I'm not really counting MVP versus Austin Aries because that was a really short match that they ended up interfering in really early. Anyway, they end up dominating Eric Young. Austin Aries comes out with a kendo stick and he attempts to fight off the new heel faction, but to no avail because they ended up gaining the upper hand, beating up both Austin Aries and Eric Young. Bobby Roode is still nowhere to be found, by the way. He was absent from this episode of Impact, along with the Menagerie. And actually, I'm pretty glad the Menagerie wasn't involved in this episode of Impact. So, like I said in the beginning, this show was pretty much, it started with a thumbs up and then somehow went this way and then down the drainer. Um, Impact Wrestling is going to be in New York City pretty soon. And I'm actually going to be attending those shows because, as you well know, I live in New York City and I'm going to support them. I'm going to help them out, see what happens. But anyway, if you liked this review, if you felt that it was helpful, please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also follow me at TheWizard411. That is my Twitter handle. And you can also follow me on my Instagram. So I hope you folks enjoyed it. I know this was kind of more of a rant session rather than a review. It just gets kind of frustrating when something that you love just ends up not being what it should be. But anyway, you heard it from me. I am the Wizard 411. You guys are awesome, and don't ever let anyone tell you different.